Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program. We are delighted to have you joining us today. My name is Julie Powers, and I'm the Executive Director of the Mesothelioma Applied Research Foundation. With me today is one of our stellar volunteers, Rich Mosca, who heads up the review process for the foundation's work and also serves as our delegate to the CDMRP peer-reviewed program. I'm also delighted to welcome Donna Kimbark, PhD, who is with the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program, and it is our privilege to have her with us as well, and who will be conducting the webinar today. Before we get started, I want to advise you that in the chat, the chat is open if you have questions, but please plan to submit any questions that you may have for our speaker through the Q&A text chat window, which is located at the bottom of your screen. Those questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. If you somehow miss a question and would care to ask that later, you're welcome to submit that to us via email. Please send it to Julie, Julie, at curemeso.org. You can also call the foundation or contact us through the website or social media. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Rich Mosca, who has a few remarks before we get started with our presentation.
Thank you, Julie, for the opportunity to speak here for a few moments. So I'm a 15-year peritoneal survivor, and I've been doing the CDMRP consumer review process for over 10 years, almost since the I'm pretty sure since the foundation, through advocacy, got us on the list of rare cancers. I can speak for hours on this topic, but the most important thing I can say is that the consumer reviewer has an equal vote in this entire process. And if you ask me if I had to zoom in on one or two of the most important things about the peer review process, is that there's actually three of them, but very briefly, the scientific community gets to really see the consumer or the patient in this whole process. And it doesn't set, and some of them are clinical, in a clinical setting, some are not. But what's really important is you sit down and you are peer-to-peer with them, and they get your perspective more than they've ever seen before. The second part of it is the consumer gets to see the scientific community and their perspective. They're doctors, they're researchers, they have a completely different outlook than we do. But it's important that the consumer or the patient knows where they're coming from and what their process is and how things work on the other side of the fence. The most important thing is the actual peer review process. And I'm sure Don is going to touch on this much more later, but when there's a panel set up like the MESO panel, there may be 10 reviewers, and one or two of them might be consumer reviewers. The consumer reviewer gets the burden of doing 10 to 12 research reviews from the impact point of view, where the scientific reviewers only get 2 or 3. And that's not, I'm not being fair to them. They have a lot more work than what the consumer does. But the process, so two scientific reviewers will get assigned and one consumer reviewer to a particular grant, and you get to do your preliminary reviews. The nice part about it is you get to see their reviews after they're submitted, so you can tweak yours. But what's really cool about this is, I equate this to like getting on the golf tee for the first time in your life, and you're going through this process, and you don't see what's going. You may be dead on parallel to what they're reviewing. You may be at the end of the spectrum. The great part about it is you get to review theirs, review their perspective of a grant, and then you're allowed the ability to change your reviews. Quite the opposite. You may all be on the same page as well, which is great. But the best part of the whole process is when we actually do present our reviews at the panel, the rest of the panel gets to give their perspective. And many times when we're all sitting up here, the number 9s and 10s, sometimes it gets knocked down because the other reviewers have a different perspective and a different outlook. That's the most important thing in this process. And this should never go away, because I've seen ones that have been reviewed a little bit lower popped up to the top, and some that have been really high dropped down a level. And it's all just a great process that everybody sits at a round table, or in the last 2 or 3 years doing Zoom calls like this. But I think that's the most important thing about the peer review process, is that you get to see perspectives from other reviewers, and then you can finally come to a consensus on what's the best thing to do. That's my take on this whole process, and I'm proud to be part of it for the last 10 to 12 years, and hope to be doing more in the future.
Thank you so much, Rich, and we appreciate your perspective and for your advocacy on behalf of patients at all stages. And we wanted to make sure that the research community understood the critical part of peers in the peer review process. Not only is your proposal reviewed by well-qualified mesothelioma experts, but also the people who are directly affected by the work that you do. And we are so grateful for the volunteer service and for all the researchers out there in the community. Now, as we get started with the official presentation with Donna, Rich and I are going to disappear. I'm going to share my screen. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them through the text chat Q&A window. So thanks, everybody, and we're going to rock and roll. There we go.
Thank you so much, Julie, for the opportunity to be able to speak today to the mesothelioma research community and as well as patient community. I think it's extremely important that we start working towards a very successful fiscal year for our peer review cancer research program. So I'm Donna Kimbark. I'm the peer review cancer research program program manager. I have been the program manager since the inception of the program, and I'm very excited today to introduce you to some of the programs and the funding opportunities that are going to be offered by the peer review cancer research program for fiscal year 22. Let's go to the next slide. My agenda is written out here. I'm going to go through a slight introduction to talk about the history of the PRCRP and the Congressional Language. Then I'm going to introduce you to our overarching challenges, which is something that you might not have heard of before for the peer review cancer research program. Then I'm going to get into the program initiatives. We have some interesting initiatives that I think are very important for you to know about so that you know how to answer those funding opportunities that I'm going to speak about. And then I'm going to go into some dates to remember, as well as tips for success and some pitfalls. Let's go to the next slide. The history of the PRCRP, we started in fiscal year 2009. It was the very first program that I got to be program manager for. It had an appropriation of $16 million in congressional language directing what topic areas would be funded by that $16 million. From that time, from fiscal year 09 through 22, we've had 35 different topic areas included under the PRCRP. The number of topic areas change each year. The types of topic areas can change each year as well. From 09 through 21, we've had around $650 million appropriated, with 920 awards being made. For fiscal year 22, we have our largest appropriation yet, $130 million. So it's really important for you to get a part of this action and find out what we have to offer you this year. Our vision has been pretty much the same over the years. It's to advance mission readiness of those in the U.S. military affected by cancer, and to improve the quality of life by decreasing the burden of cancer, not only on service members, but their families, veterans, and the American public. We do this by successfully promoting that high impact cancer research across the entire cancer capability spectrum, from prevention all the way through to survivorship. So let's go to the next slide. Thank you. The congressional language that's really important for fiscal year 22 for PRCRP is shown here. Our congressional language includes our topic areas. As you can see, we have 20 different topic areas this year with new topic areas. But really the most important topic area for you this year is that mesothelioma that's at the bottom of the first column on the left. That mesothelioma has been included in PRCRP for multiple years now, so we really want to make mesothelioma one of our big topic areas that's getting a lot of applications as well as a lot of funding towards it. Prohibitive cancers are included here just to show you that we do not fund breast cancer, pancreatic, prostate, ovarian, kidney, lung, melanoma, or rare cancers. Now you might say, well, mesothelioma is a rare cancer. How can it be funded by PRCRP? That's the Congress took care of that as well. They included the language that the inclusion of the Rare Cancer Research Program shall not prohibit the peer review cancer research program from funding the mentioned cancers here. The reason why these are prohibited cancers is because of the fact that each one of these cancers have their own individual program, but we're still allowed to fund mesothelioma even though it's a rare cancer. We're also allowed to fund mesothelioma because it's named, even though some people consider the way that mesothelioma presents is a thoracic cancer, but we all know that that's not true, to just think of it as a plural malignant mesothelioma. So we will fund plural malignant mesothelioma as well as other types of mesothelioma as well. All of our applications must be relevant to service members and their families. So now I'm going to go over a little bit about what that means. Let's go to the next slide. How do we deal with relevance to military health focus areas when we're a cancer research program? Many people say, well, how does this make it, how is this any special? How is this special? How is cancer special just to the military? And number one, I'm going to answer you, there is nothing special about the military and cancer. But the fact that military members can be exposed to risk factors, including asbestos, does impact the military and how we're going to be able to ensure that we have a healthy military to do its duties. Also, we have the idea of gaps in cancer research that may affect mission readiness. Anytime you have mission readiness that may be impacted by a health diagnosis, either by that service member or by people within their family or people that they know, and they might have to help those people by bringing them to appointments or being their main caretaker, then the whole unit is effectively affected by that force vulnerability and the fact that that person has been diagnosed by cancer, with cancer. So it's really important for us to consider not only cancer risk factors, but mission readiness as well. All opportunities and all awards must address either the environmental exposure risk factors or the gaps in cancer research that may affect mission readiness. Let's go to the next slide. How does mesothelioma fit in with a PRCRP? Just general military facts. Veterans account for over 33% of all the cases of mesothelioma in the United States. Exposure to asbestos is the leading cause, we do know that, and the fact that Navy shipyards and older equipment may have exposed asbestos may lead to mesothelioma diagnosis, not immediately, but maybe 20, 30 years down the line. Therefore, we must take care of our veterans who sacrificed much time in their life to protect us as American citizens. Mesothelioma is, of course, considered rare. It's only 3,000 per year in the United States. So PRCRP funding for mesothelioma from FY11, when it first started as a topic area in PRCRP, through FY20, we've had about $20 million in PRCRP. We've made more than 3 awards. I don't know why it says 3 awards there, and I apologize for that. That's a typo. For FY21, we made 4 awards and about $3.5 million. We're really looking forward to going out and outreaching and pushing for more funding for mesothelioma under the PRCRP. So please go ahead and try to put those in, put your applications in as soon as possible. We fund everything from basic to applied to translational and clinical trials. So it just, you just have to really decide which is the best funding opportunity to go into. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. One of the things I told you about at the very beginning when we talked about what I'm going to talk about today is those overarching challenges. From FY20, in FY21, we started the idea of overarching challenges and how PRCRP could really help cancer in the capability gaps. What we decided to do was, you know, we have this list of different topic areas. We have 20 different topic areas. How do we take these 20 different topic areas and instead of seeing them as an impediment, see them as an advantage? And what we decided was that we could do it by overarching challenges. Maybe one cancer could teach something to the other cancer. Maybe certain cancers together have similar gaps. So we really wanted to look at what those overarching challenges and those gaps might be. And this is what we came up with, these 14 different overarching challenges that are put into these 6 different buckets. Prevention, diagnostics, treatment, behavioral health science, diversity, and resources. So what we actually think here is it's really important for us to take a look at all of these different types of overarching challenges. The overarching challenges that you would be addressing are shown underneath each one of these buckets. For instance, under treatment, transform cancer care or cancer treatment for mesothelioma. Advance immunotherapy. We all know that immunotherapy really works well for some cancers, but doesn't work well for other cancers. So it's really important for us to go ahead and try to improve that for our different cancers. So take a look. You have to answer one of these overarching challenges, one of the 14 different overarching challenges. So it's really important for you to take a look and see where you fit in. I bet that there is a place for you to fit in. Let's go to the next slide. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit is our initiatives. We have 2 different initiatives. Our first initiative is Convergence and Career Development, and our second initiative is Innovation and Impact. So first of all, I want to talk about convergence and convergent science. What is convergent science? According to the National Science Foundation, convergent science is a means of solving vexing research problems, in particular complex problems. It entails integrating knowledge, methods, and expertise from different disciplines and forming novel frameworks to catalyze scientific discovery and innovation, and finally, those clinical applications. And now, when we talk about vexing research problems, isn't cancer one of our most vexing biomedical problems that are out there? So we decided that convergent science, with our different topic areas that could cross-pollinate one another, and different research disciplines that could cross-pollinate one another, is really the way to go. So our first initiative is, how do we bring convergent science into cancer and career development in cancer research? Our first was Virtual Cancer Center, and it really is aiming to enhance career development by breaking down those stovepipes and the inclusion of convergent science training to include military health. And I'm going to go into this a little bit more in detail in a moment. Our second initiative is Innovation and Impact. It's really important that even when we're using a convergent science approach, that we are actually looking at innovation and impactful science. This is our opportunity to really change the paradigm of cancer research across the different topic areas and across the different disciplines. And it really is our opportunity, once again, to enhance and support clinically relevant ideas and invest in convergent science that can really help solve our vexing problem of cancer. Let's go to the next slide. When we go to the next slide, what we're going to talk about a little bit is some of our funding opportunities. We have Convergent Science funding opportunities, and we have innovation and impact opportunities. The three Convergent Science funding that we have is our FY20 Virtual Cancer Center. The FY20 Virtual Cancer Center is not available this year, but there is a way to get involved in the Virtual Cancer Center, and that is by the Career Development Award, the scholarship option, and that is a Convergent Science scholarship option. And also, we also have as our third opportunity is a Convergent Science Cancer Consortium Development Award. I'm going to introduce you to this and how you might be able to come into the peer review cancer research program through this Consortium Development Award. And then we have our Innovation and Impact Awards, a Career Development Award at the Fellow option, which wouldn't be part of the Convergent Science Virtual Cancer Center, Idea Award, Impact Award, Translational Team Science Award, and the Behavioral Health Science Award. Let's go to the next slide. One of the things that I just talked about with our Convergent Science initiative was the Virtual Cancer Center. Our Virtual Cancer Center is started in FY20, and we are determined to grow it. And that's why we have the opportunity for the scholarship option this year. Our director and deputy director are shown here, Dan Theodorescu and Peter Kuhn, our director and deputy director of this Convergent Science Virtual Cancer Center, which is like an academy for independent early career investigators. And you can see each one of them, they're placed all across the country. And they, each and every one of them, are looking at different cancers and different research disciplines. We have chemists, we have psychologists, we have geneticists, we have people working in metastatic cancer, we have people working in blood cancers, and this is the opportunity for you as an early career investigator to come in and bring mesothelioma into the Virtual Cancer Center, to cross-pollinate and learn and collaborate with not only leaders in Convergent Science, but also those early career investigators that might actually be a great opportunity for you. So let's go to the next slide. So let's look at those funding opportunities, and this is where you really want to know what is out there. The funding opportunities that I'm going to go over first are letter of intent. And what we call a letter of intent is that you get to go ahead and apply to these at the pre-application stage by saying that you intend to go ahead and apply to the Translational Team Science Award under mesothelioma and under like an overarching challenge, transforming cancer treatment. And that's all you really have to do. You do not have to worry about an invitation. You don't have to worry about writing up a heavy letter of intent. So this is what a letter of intent means for our funding opportunities that I'm going to go over first. The Behavioral Health Science Award is really about an award that it's looking at the spectrum of behavioral health sciences, including prevention, survivorship, quality of life, and psychosocial research related to cancer and the long-term effects of having cancer and what that could lead to. This is a $1 million award in direct costs. It's a 4-year period of performance. Independent investigators at a faculty level appointment are eligible. You must address the FY22 topic area, the military health focus area, and overarching challenge. You're going to see this bullet on each and every one of those. This is the only time I'm going to tell you that, but you are required to pick a topic area, a military health focus area, and an overarching challenge. The Translational Team Science Award is one of our larger awards. It's $2.5 million in direct costs. This is a Team Science Award. It says Team Science right in the title. So what we're looking for is 2 to 3 PIs to come together at the level of assistant professor or above You're looking at translational studies associated with ongoing or completed clinical trials to do that correlative study. I know that a lot of clinical trials funds go to the clinical trial itself, and all of that data that you collect, you can't do the correlative studies. This is your opportunity to do that. We do allow funds for those clinical trials, though, as well for the Translational Team Science Award, and that's a $2.5 million award. Let's go to the next slide. Once again, we're still in the letter of intent, so no invitation needed. This is our Career Development Awards. We have two different options for our Career Development Awards. We have the Virtual Cancer Center Scholar option and the Fellow option. Let's go over that Scholar option first. This is $800K in direct costs. It's a 4-year period of performance. We want fully independent tenure track assistant professors that are below that 7-year terminal, 7 years from their terminal degree. I do want to put in that caveat here that we do exempt time spent on family medical leave, a clinical fellowship, and so on. So pay attention to that. Postdoctoral time spent in postdoctoral time and postdocs are not applicable to either one of these. We're really supporting scholars to be part of this interactive virtual cancer center. It provides intense mentoring, national networking, and a peer group of junior faculty. You will do your own work in mesothelioma, but you'll also interact with people across the cancer landscape, getting more ideas for your work in mesothelioma. The fellow option is, say you're not in a tenure track area just yet, and maybe you're not fully independent. Maybe you are an independent investigator, but you have lab space in an established investigator's lab. That's okay for the fellow option. Here you're looking at $400K in direct costs for a 3-year period. Independent investigators at the research assistant level, assistant professor level, or instructor with less than 7 years from their terminal degree. Once again, the caveat plays a part in this as well, where we don't count time spent in medical leave or time spent in clinical fellowship. We do count time spent in postdoctoral fellows. And you're not allowed to apply to this as a postdoc because this is really considered, postdoc is not considered independent. This is really supporting those early career investigators to get to beyond their independence where they are now, to get to that tenure track assistant professor level appointment. There is some mentorship here with an experienced career guide for your cancer researcher. So these are your two different options. Strongly suggest that you consider these if you're an early career investigator. Let's go to the next slide. Here is our last letter of intent, no invitation needed. Believe it or not, our Consortium Development Award is a no invitation needed. We're looking for someone that's really interested in bringing Convergent Science to cancer research. Here's a $2.5 million award for a 2-year period of performance. We're looking for a PI that's going to be the coordinating or the consortium director at or above the level of associate professor. The co-PIs for the different research sites will be at the level of assistant professor. What we're really looking for here is for you to come together from different topic areas. You can come in from mesothelioma. You could come in from metastatic cancers. You could come in from blood cancers. Bring them all together, see what they can learn from one another. Here we're really looking for you to address 3 different topic areas. So mesothelioma can be one, but you have to pick 2 others. And we're also looking for you to support novel approaches to ending cancer through convergent science. And here, this is really just a proof of principle study. We're looking for proof of principle pilot studies that show that convergent science and bringing together different topic areas, as well as bringing together different research disciplines, will really move the field forward in cancer research. And with this $2.5 million, we're also looking to develop that convergent science infrastructure, your coordinating center, your intellectual property information that you want to put together to push information from one research site to another. You want to put together an external advisory board as well as a steering committee and so on. So it's money for an infrastructure award as well as their proof of principle pilot studies. Let's go to the next slide. Now this is our pre-proposal where an invitation is required. I made this one slightly different in how it's set up so that you could tell very clearly that these were different than the other ones that we just talked about. Here you'll put together a pre-proposal, and that pre-proposal is 1 page for the idea award and 2 pages for the impact award. The idea award is $400K in direct costs for a 2-year period. We really see the idea award as a basic science award and a seed mechanism type of award. We're not looking for near-term information from the idea award. Independent investigators at the faculty level appointment are eligible for this award and encouraged to apply. We're supporting innovative, untested theories and methods to bring into the idea award. We're really not looking for what you've been doing in the lab for a while, okay? So that's really important to pay attention to that. This is really our seed mechanism or our concept type of award mechanism. Our impact type of award mechanism is a $1 million 3-year period of performance. Here you have to put in a 2-page pre-proposal. We're looking for independent investigators at or above the level of assistant professor. And what we're really looking for is more advanced studies. These have to move the field forward, have a major impact. That's why the word impact is in there. We really wanted to move the field forward. Clinical trials are allowed here. So you're allowed to come in and say, you know, I've been working on all of this basic research, applied research, and I'm ready to do a clinical trial. This is where you're going to do your impact award. This is where you should come in under. So let's go to the next slide. These are the dates to remember or your submission deadlines. If you want to remember anything, this is where you want to remember it from. The LOI is for the first 5 different funding opportunities. Those, the first 4 are due by the 12th of July. The Convergent Science Cancer Consortium LOI is due by the 17th of August. We gave you a little bit more time here because we know it's a little bit more difficult to put together something that's brand new, like the Convergent Science Consortium Development Award. There's no invitation needed. And what you're looking for here for the full application deadline is the 2nd of August for most of them. For the Convergent Science Cancer Consortium Development Award, it's the 7th of September. Remember, there's no invitation needed. So from now until the 2nd of August, you could be working on this. Just remember to take a pause on the 12th of July and put in your letter of intent. Now, the idea award and the impact award, you got to get on it right away because the fact that the pre-proposal is due by the 25th of May. So there's not a lot of time here. So go ahead and submit that pre-proposal. An idea pre-proposal is 1 page long and the impact is 2 pages long. There are specific directions on what you need to answer for the idea and the impact award in their pre-proposal. The invitation to submit is going to be due on the 11th. We will tell you whether or not you are open to going ahead and getting your invitation to submit a full application on the 11th of July. And your full application is then due by the 7th of September. You have almost 2 months to write that full application. Let's go to the next slide. Strategies for success. I've often talked about this. You might have heard me talk about some strategies for success. I'm going to try to hit on some really important points here. Plan ahead. Okay, you're listening to this this webinar for a reason. You're trying to plan ahead, coordinate your efforts, bring your team together. And remember those deadlines. Those deadlines, I can't go beyond those deadlines. There's no way I'm going to be able to do that for you. Don't tire the reviewers. When you're writing a sentence, if there's more than 1 or 2 abbreviations, you've used way too many abbreviations. You're tiring the reviewers. They have to go back and have to remember what your specific abbreviation might be. You don't want to have them do that. Review your documents prior to submission and use the verification period. After the deadline submission, like the 7th of September, you have to go ahead and there's like a week period of time where you can go in and adjust things. So use that for that verification period, and use your peer review criteria. The program announcement that you're going to be answering, that program announcement, most investigators will read the first part of that program announcement, what they have to put in for their application, but they don't look at the peer review criteria. Go ahead and look at that peer review criteria and use it as your checklist. As long as you've checked off and answered each one of those, you'll get a higher score because you've paid attention to it. How many times have I heard peer reviewers say, they haven't, the investigator never addressed their pitfalls, never talked about alternate strategies. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Go ahead and do your TED Talk. State your idea up front and then back it up. And make your case to how your research aligns to the intent of the program. If you're doing an impact award, and you're going to go ahead and do something that's near-term impact, tell me why it's near-term impact. Don't go ahead and say that it is basic research and you're going to have near-term impact. If it's basic research, you're not going to have near-term impact, most probably. Impactful science, cool science is good, impactful science is great. Show how it's impactful and important to patients, and use plain language. You will be evaluated on whether or not you're using plain language in your lay abstract and in your impact statement. Really important to do that. And also feasibility. Make sure your team's skills link up with what you're trying to do, and always justify how and why you can achieve the anticipated outcomes. Don't just say you can do it, show us. That's the old adage when you're writing something like a novel or something like that, show, don't tell. Show that you can do it. Justify why you can do it. So let's go to the next slide. So pitfalls to avoid in application submission. Do not include the programmatic panel members for the program or fiscal year to which you are applying. This goes across the entire board for the congressionally directed medical research programs. I've listed here the different panel members and with their organization. Make sure that any one of these people are not listed in your application or your pre-application. Never list them. They should not be listed. Do not exceed the page limits. If you exceed the page limit, I can't allow you in. And often PDF versions will change those page limits. Make sure that once you convert to PDF, it doesn't cause issues. Don't miss the submission guidelines. I've given you a heads up of what those submission guidelines are. You're not allowed to go beyond those. And use that application verification period in EBRAP, which is where you get for your portal. Do not ignore that verification period. It's really important. And you must submit the project narrative and the budget prior to the deadline. Those cannot be changed in the verification period on EBRAP, in our EBRAP portal. Everything else can be, but not the project narrative and the budget. Let's go to the next slide. So let's, I'm going to answer some common questions that I get a lot. I'm not from the US. Can I still apply? Yep, you can apply. As long as you register under SAM and see the general application instructions, which come along with the program announcement. For more information on how to do that, you can apply. When are the due dates? I don't remember the due dates that you just told me. Well, look at the front cover of the program announcement and the due dates will be there. Can I apply as a postdoc to the Career Development Award? No, I'm sorry, you cannot. The scholar and the fellow options require a degree of independence. They're slightly lower for the research assistant professor or instructor for the fellow option. Do I have to use a military population in my clinical trial? No, that's not necessary. You use the population that's most representative. Or if you're studying something that's different, It's a good comparison. It's fine. It's fine. You don't need to have a military population, and I cannot help you get a military application population. Where do I apply? You start your application at ebrap.org. You can just put EBRAP in any of your favorite web browsers, and it will come back right back up. Or you can go and find our funding opportunities at our cdmrp.army.mil website or grants.gov website. When you go to grants.gov, just put the listing number of 12.420. And can we get a copy of this briefing? Yeah, I'm sure that you can. That's fine with me. Let's go to the next slide. And if you need more information, go right ahead and visit our website, and I'll be happy to answer any questions now.
Thank you so much, Donna. That was a wonderful presentation. We so appreciate having you with us today. I'm going to invite Rich to unmute, and he and I will pop back on the screen. And let's see, let me get him. Let's see. Oh, where's that little spotlight thing? You know what? I'm going to just unspotlight us. It'll take care of itself. This technical difficulty thing, you know. So anyway, we do have a question. If you could please put your question into the text chat window at the bottom of your screen where it says Q&A. So I believe there's somebody who's got a question. I don't have any currently in there. You can also submit your questions in the chat. Donna, I do have a couple of questions that came in through email. If you don't mind, I'd be happy to. I'll read them. I'll read them aloud, and thank you for that. I do have. I have a question from a researcher who is inquiring about putting together. They are not accustomed to working. They're more of a pure science researcher, and they have not had any experience in working directly with patients. Should they? How should they get a patient perspective on their proposal? What would you recommend would be a good way to approach that?
Well, I would think that the best way to approach it is to contact the Mesothelioma Applied Research Foundation and ask them to talk to some patients.
I swear, everybody, I did not set Donna up for that. I really didn't.
That's my answer all the time. When you want to hear a patient perspective, go to the source and get that patient perspective. I mean, that's the best way to do it. And especially, I mean, the Behavioral Health Science Award mechanism actually asks for patient advocacy participants within the award mechanism and your application package. So it's really important to make those contacts.
That's
so
great. Thank you so much. And we do appreciate that. And for anyone watching this now, or who was watching the recorded version, we are happy to speak to you about this. If you want to drop an email to Julie, Julie at curemeso.org. And I'm also the one who sent the invitation out for today's meeting. So you just hit a reply and it'll get to me. We're happy to help you. Help discuss this with you. We do have peer reviewers, and I am not a peer reviewer. Rich is, so we will make sure to ensure that there's an arm's length between that. But we are always happy to provide insight. A follow on to that question is that the FDA, as they are approving drugs, are talking about a robust, patient-focused drug development process. Can you talk a little bit about anything that you think that the process of this grant application and award process, how a researcher or a proposal could be linked to that larger, bigger picture, especially down the road, linking research to eventual drug development, potential drug development?
So you want to know linking research itself to drug development? And
correct, yeah. And how patient-focused drug development, how is this? Is there a linkage? Is this a training ground for that? Kind of. It's a new approach, so I think there's some concern or questions about how that's implemented.
I think it's a new approach for the FDA. It's not a new approach for us. Okay, we have, since the very, very beginning, put consumers as our true north. Okay, we call patients and patient advocates consumers, because why do we call them consumers? It sounds like a weird thing to call them that, but they are the people that are going to be using the products of research. Okay, they're going to be using them to you know, make their lives better, even save their lives. So I think that CDMRP has always been patient focused, and our whole existence is because of patient advocates. CDMRP would not exist unless patients go to the Hill on a yearly basis. We're not in the president's budget, and so you know, people like Julie and so on from the Mesothelioma Applied Research Foundation. These people go to the Hill on a yearly basis asking for these funds to be added to the DoD appropriation. We're not in the president's budget. So our whole focus is making an impact. And that's why we have impact as one of our criteria. We've had it for multiple years. It used to be called relevance. Now it's called impact. That's why we have the Impact Award for the Peer Review Cancer Research Program. And that's why we started with our Convergent Science initiative, because we felt like there were a lot of cancers being left behind and not getting the attention that some of the other cancers get. And so we thought to ourselves, how can we change this? How can we take some things that are being learned in other cancers and bring them to our cancers? And that's why we're doing Convergent Science, to bring that together. And so with drug development, we always have the question about how is this going to affect the patient? And like I said, cool science is good, but impactful science is great. And that is our true north, and it will always be our true north at CDMRP, because we don't exist without patient advocates and our mission, and that is making a difference in patients' lives.
Thank you so much, Donna. That's a wonderful answer, and I swear I didn't set you up. Let's see. We do have a question. We have a question. If you want to go ahead and take this one from the community, that'd be great.
Yeah.
If you want to read it out, though, that would be helpful.
Yeah. Will there ever be a time in the future where funding for the year will be broken into the first half and the second half to speed science to patient treatment? That is not probably going to be in our future for PRCRP or CDMRP. We have to wait for the appropriation. And you know, when there is a continuing resolution, it does decrease the time that we have and cause a lot of delays in our milestones and in getting our program announcements out. We're supposed to have our program announcements out in October and November of the new fiscal year. As you can tell, my program announcements were released on March 31st. So we're really late, and then we're late because of the fact that we had so many continuing resolutions. So breaking up the funding is not going to be possible, but we are trying to do things that make it easier for people to get to the clinic faster and to get to patient treatment faster by doing innovative different types of science. And that's one of the things we're trying to do with the Consortium Development Award. Right now, it doesn't allow clinical treatment, clinical trials, but it's because it's a development award. But we're really trying to use it for something that will possibly put together an infrastructure so that we can get a speed science from the bench to the bedside faster. So we're looking at it not splitting the funding, but actually approaching the way that we look at science differently. I hope that answers some of your questions.
I think that's great. And I do think that it's important that the folks who are watching today, now or in the future, understand that the team at CDMRP we are tied to the federal budget process, and because of those continuing resolutions, and we are not included in the continuing resolutions. This funding is not, because this is congressionally directed. So it has to be added into the budget process post or as that's being negotiated. For example, like you said, the announcement came out at the end of March because the budget got approved then. And I think it's appropriate to report that we are now in April of this year, we are now having meetings with members of all offices to talk to them about the relevance of this funding and these programs to warfighters and military veterans and their families. So in fact, I will be signing off of this and going into another meeting. So we appreciate so much, but that's what we do at the Meso Foundation, is we do that advocacy for this work. And we are really grateful to Donna and her team for preparing this presentation, for being with us. And I also want to give a second thank you to Rich for not only his current service, but also his previous service, and being one of the very first reviewers, and being that person who has been on the front lines of this program and have seen some truly translational research and really inspiring research that's happened throughout the years. Should you have any additional questions, please feel free to submit them. We're also happy to make available to you this presentation in PDF format. Just send a note over to the foundation, julie@curemeso.org. I'd be happy to prepare that and get it into your inbox within the next day or so. If you'd like to watch it again, this will be available on our website fairly soon. And as always, I want to say thank you to Donna for being such an inspirational leader and partner. We so appreciate you and all that you do, and also the rest of your staff. We can't thank you enough. And so on behalf of the Mesothelioma Foundation board and staff, I want to say thanks for your time, everyone, today. And we hope to see many, many, many mesothelioma applications in the queue. We're looking forward to some hard work, and and if you want to bounce ideas, you know where to find us. We look forward to hearing from you in the future. So thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.